As I walked back through the city of the gods, conversation stopped. The muses paused their concert. People and satyrs and naiads all turned to me, their faces filled with respect and gratitude. And as I passed, they knelt, as if I was some kind of hero. 15 minutes later, still in a trance, I was back on the streets of Manhattan. I caught a taxi to my mom's apartment, rang the doorbell, and there she was, my beautiful mother, smelling of peppermint and licorice, the weariness and worry evaporating from her face as soon as she saw me. "Percy, oh thank God, oh my baby." She crushed the air right out of me. We stood in the hallway as she cried, and she ran her hands through my hair. I'll admit it, my eyes were a little misty too. I was shaking. I was so relieved to see her. She told me she just appeared at the apartment that morning, scared Gabe half out of his wits. She didn't remember anything since the Minotaur, and couldn't believe it when Gabe told her I was a wanted criminal, traveling across the country, blowing up national monuments. She'd been going out of her mind with worry all day because she hadn't heard any news. Gabe had forced her to go into work, saying she hadn't had a month's salary to make up and she'd better get started. I swallowed back my anger and told her my own story. I tried to make it sound less scary than it had been, but that wasn't easy. I was just getting into the fight with Aries when Gabe's voice interrupted from the living room. "Hey, Sally, that meatloaf done yet or what?" She closed her eyes. "He isn't going to be happy to see you, Percy. The store got 500,000 phone calls from Los Angeles. Something about free appliances." "Oh yeah, how about that?" She managed a weak smile. "Just don't make him angry, all right? Come on." In the months she'd been gone, the apartment had turned into Gabe land. Garbage was ankle-deep on the carpet. The sofa had been reupholstered in beer cans. Dirty socks and underwear hung off the long lampshades. Gabe and 3 of his goony friends were playing poker at the table. When Gabe saw me, his cigar dropped out of his mouth. His face got redder than lava. "You got the nerve coming here, you little punk. I thought the police—" "He's not a fugitive after all," Mom interjected. "Isn't that wonderful, Gabe?" Gabe looked back and forth between us. He didn't seem to think my homecoming was so wonderful. "Bad enough I had to give back your life insurance money, Sally," he growled. "Get me the phone." "I'll call the cop." "Gabe, no!" He raised his eyebrows. "Did you just say no? I think I'm going to put up with this punk again. I can still press charges against him for ruining my Camaro." "But—" He raised his hand, and my mother flinched. For the first time I realized something. Gabe had hit my mother. Didn't know when or how much, but I was sure he'd done it. Maybe it had been going on for years when I wasn't around. A balloon of anger started expanding in my chest. I came towards Gabe, instinctively taking my pen out of my pocket. He just laughed. "What, punk? You gonna write on me? You touch me and you're going to jail forever, you understand?" "Hey, Gabe," his friend Andy interrupted. "He's just a kid." Gabe looked at him resentfully and mimicked his falsetto voice. "Just a kid." His other friends laughed like idiots. "I'll be nice to you, punk." Gabe showed me his tobacco-stained teeth. "I'll give you 5 minutes to get your stuff and clear out. After that, I call the police." "Gabe," my mom pleaded. "He ran away," Gabe told her. "Let him stay gone." I was itching to uncap a riptide, but even if I did, the blade wouldn't hurt humans. And Gabe, by loosest definition, was human. My mom took my arm. "Please, Percy, come on. We'll go to your room." I let her pull me away, my hand still trembling with rage. My room had completely filled with Gabe's junk. Here were stacks of used car batteries, a rotting bouquet of sympathy flowers with a card from somebody who'd seen the Barbara Walters show. "Gabe is just upset, honey," my mom told me. "I'll talk to him later. I'm sure we'll work it out." "Mom, it'll never work out. Not as long as Gabe's here." She wrung her hands nervously. I'll take you to work with me for the rest of the summer. In the fall, maybe there's another boarding school." "Mom." She lowered her eyes. I'm just trying, Percy. I just need some time. A package appeared on my bed. At least I could have sworn it hadn't been there for a moment before. It was a battered cardboard box right up the size to fit a base basketball. The address on the mailing slip was in my own handwriting. The Gods, Mount Olympus, 600th floor, Empire State Building, New York, New York, New York. With best wishes, Percy Jackson. On the top in black marker, in a man's clear, bold print, was the address of our apartment and the words, "Return to sender." Suddenly, I understood what Poseidon had told me in Olympus. A package, a decision. Whatever else you do, know you're mine. You're a true son of the sea god. I looked at my mother. Mom, do you want Gabe gone? Percy, it isn't that simple. Mom, just tell me. The jerk's been hitting you. Do you want him gone or not? She hesitated, then nodded, almost imperceptibly. Yes, Percy, I do. And I'm trying to get up my courage to tell him. But you can't do this for me. You can't solve my problems. I looked at the box. I could solve her problem. I wanted to slice that package open, plop it on the poker table, and take out what was inside. I could start my very own statue garden right there in the living room. That's what a Greek hero would do in stories, I thought. That's what Gabe deserves. But a hero story always ends tragically. Poseidon had told me that. I remembered the underworld. I thought about Gabe's spirit drifting forever in the fields of Asphodel, or condemned to see some hideous torture behind the barbed wire fences of the fields of punishment. An eternal poker game, sitting up to his waist in boiling oil, listening to opera music. Did I have the right to send him somewhere there? Even Gabe? A month ago I wouldn't have hesitated. Now, I can do it. I told my mom, one look inside this box and then he'll never bother you again. She glanced at the package and seemed to understand immediately. No, Percy, she said, stepping away. You can't. Poseidon called you a queen, I told her. He said he hadn't met a woman like you in 1,000 years. Her cheeks flushed. Percy, you deserve better than this, Mom. You should go to college, get your degree. You can write a novel, meet a nice guy maybe, live in a nice house. You don't need to protect me anymore by staying with Gabe. Let me get rid of him. She wiped a tear off his cheek. You sound so much like your father, she said. He offered to stop the tide for me once. He offered to build me a palace at the bottom of the sea. He thought he could solve all my problems with the wave of his hand. What's wrong with that? Her multicolored eyes seemed to search me now. I think you know, Percy. I think you're enough like me to understand. If my life's going to mean anything, I have to live it myself. I can't let a god take care of me or my son. I have to find the courage on my own. Your quest has reminded me of that. We listened to the sound of the poker chips and swearing. ESPN from the living room television. I'll leave the box, I said, if he threatens you. She looked pale, but she nodded. Where will you go, Percy? Half-Blood Hill? For the summer or forever? I guess that depends. We locked eyes, and I sensed that we had an agreement. We would see how things stood at the end of the summer. She kissed my forehead. You'll be a hero, Percy. You'll be the greatest of all. I took one last look at my bedroom. I had a feeling I'll never see it again. Then I walked with my mother to the front door. Leaving so soon, punk, Gabe called after me. Good riddance. I had one last twinge of doubt. How could I turn down the perfect chance to take revenge on him? I was leaving here without saving my mother. Hey, Sally, he yelled. What about that meatloaf, huh? A steely look of anger flared in my mother's eyes, and I thought, just maybe, I was leaving her in good hands after all. Her own. The meatloaf's coming right up, dear, she told him. Meatloaf's surprise. She looked at me and winced. The last thing I saw was the door swung closed, and my mom staring at Gabe as if she was contemplating how he would look as a garden statue. Chapter 22. The Prophecy Comes True. We were the first heroes to return alive to Half-Blood Hill since Luke, so of course everyone treated us as if we won some reality TV contest. According to camp tradition, we wore laurel wreaths to a big feast prepared in our honor, then led processions down to the bonfire, where we got to burn the burial shrouds our cabins had made us in our absence. Annabeth's shroud was beautiful, gray silk with embroidered owls. I told her it seemed shameful not to bury her in it. She punched me and told me to shut up. Being the son of Poseidon, I didn't have any cabin mates, so the Ares cabin had volunteered to make my shroud. They'd even taken an old bedsheet and painted smiley faces with X'd out eyes around the border, and the word loser painted really big in the middle. It was fun to burn. As Apollo's cabin led the sing-along and passed out s'mores, I was surrounded by my old Hermes cabin mates, Annabeth's friends from Athena, Grover's satyr buddies, who were admiring the brand new searcher's license he'd received from the Council of Cloven Elders. Council had called Grover's performance on the quest brave to point of indigestion, horns and whiskers above anything we'd ever seen in the past. The only ones not in the party mood were Clarice and her cabin mates, who poisonously looked towards me like they'd never forgive me for disgracing their dad. That was okay with me. Even Dionysus' welcome home speech wasn't enough to dampen my spirits. Yes, so the little brat didn't get himself killed, and now he'll have an even bigger head. Well, how's that for that? And other announcements, there'll be no canoe races this Saturday. I moved back into cabin 3, but it didn't feel so lonely anymore. I had my friends to train with during the day. At night, I lay awake and listened to the sea, knowing my father was out there. Maybe he wasn't quite so sure about me yet. Maybe he hadn't even wanted me born, but he was watching, and so far he was proud of what I'd done. As for my mother, she'd taken a new chance at life. Her letter arrived a week after I'd gone back to camp. She told me Gabe had left mysteriously, disappeared off the face of the planet. In fact, she reported him missing to the police. But she had a funny feeling they would never find him. On a completely unrelated subject, she sold her first life-size concrete sculpture entitled The Poker Player to a collector through an art gallery in Soho. She had gotten so much money for it, she put a deposit down on a new apartment and made a payment on her first semester's tuition at NYU. The Soho gallery was clamoring for more of her work, which they called a huge step forward in the super ugly neorealism. But don't worry, my mom wrote. I'm done with sculpture. I've deposited of that box of tools you left me. It's time for me to turn to writing. At the bottom she wrote, P.S. Percy, I found a good private school here in the city. I put a deposit down to hold you a spot in case you want to enroll for 7th grade. You can live at home, but if you want to go year-round at Half-Blood Hill, I'll understand. I folded the note carefully and set it on my bedside table. Every night before I went to sleep, I read it again and tried to decide how to answer her. On the 4th of July, the whole camp gathered at the beach for a fireworks display by Cabin 9. Being Hephaestus' kids, they weren't going to settle for a few lame red, white, and blue explosions. They'd anchored a barge offshore and loaded it with the size of Patriot missiles. According to Annabeth, who'd seen the show before, the blasts would be sequenced so tight they'd look like frames of animation across the sky. The finale was supposed to be a couple 100-foot-tall Spartan warriors who would crackle to life above the ocean, fight a battle, and then explode into a million colors. As Annabeth and I were spreading a picnic blanket, Grover showed up to tell us goodbye. He was dressed in his usual jeans and t-shirt and sneakers, but in the last few weeks, he started to look older, almost high school age. His goatee had gotten thicker. He'd put on weight. His horns had grown at least an inch, so now he had to wear a Rasta cap all the time to pass as human. I'm off, he said. I just came to say, well, you know. I tried to feel happy for him, after all. It wasn't every day a satyr got permission to go look for the greatest god, Pan, but it was hard to say goodbye. I'd only known Grover a year, yet he was my oldest friend. Annabeth gave him a hug. She told him to keep his fake feet on. I asked him where he was going to search first.